Yes, Mataji, we can start.
Give me just 1 minute.
Sure, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, everybody. So today we are going to be starting the new series of Bhagavad-Gita. We did the introduction, I think, for quite a few months now with selected topics, just to give, a teaser of what Bhagavad-Gita, gives us, on basic values and other concepts. So now we thought it may be a good move to go chapter wise and see what the Bhagavad Gita has to say. So the organizers, Bhakti Sangha organizers, we got together and discussed that and felt that this may, really help us do a more systematic study now that we have gone through the introduction phase. So that's what we're going to start with today. And Lalitangi Mataji will be doing the special topic session every now and then. She said she should be available hopefully by next week. So she will be doing those special topics which have been requested. So we will start with the first chapter, and we can do the invocation prayers first. नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते गिरिराजस्वामिन्निति नामिने नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्निति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Okay, so today we'll be looking at a few verses from chapter 1, about 10 to 11 verses, and we will continue in that pattern because we don't want it to be overwhelming also. We wanted to reduce the time duration of the class so that it's short and sweet and everybody can, we all can hold our attention together. So yeah, basically I think, are you able to see my slideshow?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay, because I was just trying to, look into my notes, so that's why I was wondering. You're still able to see my slideshow, right? Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, Mataji.
So basically, we see. Hi, board.
Okay. Yes, Mataji, we are able to see your screen, Mataji.
Are you seeing the slideshow or the database?
The slideshow, Mataji.
Okay, sure. Yeah, because I just want to make sure, because I want to show the slideshow and I want to refer to my notes too at the same time. So that's why I was asking. So yeah, so we, Lalitangi Mataji gave quite a nice introduction to Bhagavad Gita, discussing the 5 main topics which Bhagavad Gita deals with, and also, kind of set the scene for how the war, the Mahabharat war started in the first place. The Battle of Kurukshetra started in the first place. And so I thought, without delving more into those aspects, because I think that those have been covered over 2 or 3 sessions in a lot of depth by Mataji, I thought that we should, perhaps jump right into the into the chapters and try and study it. So yeah, the first verse, as it would happen, is actually spoken by Any guesses? Dhritarashtra.
Dhritarashtra.
Yeah. So any volunteers who would like to read this first slide?
Hare Krishna Mataji. Dhritarashtra Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta Yuvatsava Mama Kava Pandava Saiva Kim Akurvata Sanjaya. Can you read the translation also, Mataji?
Please, the first slide basically.
Translation. Dhritarashtra said, O Sanjaya, after my sons and the sons of Pandu assembled in the place of pilgrimage at Kurukshetra, desiring to fight, what did they do? Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Do you want to go ahead with the purport, Prabhu?
Sure, Mataji. Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is the widely read the theistic science summarized in the Gita Mahatya, glorification of the Gita. There it says that one should read Bhagavad Gita very scrutinizingly with the help of a person who is a devotee of Sri Krishna and try to understand it without a personal motivated interpretations. The example of clear understanding is there in the Bhagavad Gita itself. In the way teaching is understood by Arjuna, who heard the Gita directly from the Lord. If someone is fortunate enough to understand the Bhagavad Gita in that line of disciplic succession without motivated interpretation, then he surpasses all studies of Vedic wisdom and all scriptures of the world. One will find in the Bhagavad Gita all that is contained in other scriptures, but the reader will also find things which are not to be found elsewhere. That is the specific standard of the Gita. It is the perfect theistic science because it is directly spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Hare
Yeah,
Krishna.
like we see, this purport actually continues over the next two pages also. And this purport, I basically wanted, that we all can read this because it really has so many interesting points. Srila Prabhupada actually points out, into how we should actually be looking at this first chapter, because in a sense he gives a lot of points away as to how we can understand the whole chapter here. So we see that Dhritarashtra is asking Sanjaya as to what actually happened, in the pilgrimage place of Kurukshetra. He calls this as Dharmakshetra. Dharmakshetra means a very holy place or a sacred place, and Kurukshetra, and he is actually anxious in one sense, and he asks that now that both the parties, the Pandavas and the Kauravas, have assembled there, so what is happening there? He wants to know what's happening there. So like we know, Sanjaya had this kind of transcendental vision, which was given to him by Vyasadev, by which he could actually see the war, like a TV screen. The whatever was happening there, he could see it right there, in the palace, and inform Dhritarashtra of what was happening, because Dhritarashtra was blind, both spiritually and also, physically. So we see that in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says that is the Bhagavad Gita is the widely read theistic science summarized in the Gita Mahatmya. There it says that one should read Bhagavad Gita very scrutinizingly with the help of a person who is a devotee of Sri Krishna. So we see that this Bhagavad Gita is best understood when we are actually reading it, uh, in the association of devotees, or when we are actually reading the purports or the summaries as given to us by an acharya or a teacher who is realized in this path of uh, in this path of Krishna consciousness. So that it helps, like Srila Prabhupada is setting the scene very clearly that if we try and do a self study and try to understand by, maybe by whatever knowledge of Sanskrit we have, or try to refer to just, scholarly translations of the Bhagavad Gita, we may not get the whole essence, because it has to be understood. And he says it should be read very scrutinizingly with the help of a person who is a devotee of Krishna. So, in the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada says that this science of Bhagavad Gita is actually understood by a person, who has these 5 relationships with Krishna. Basically, he's in a passive state. One may be a devotee in a passive state, or he could be a devotee in an active state, or he could be a devotee as a friend, or as a parent, or as a conjugal lover. So these are the 5 rasas that Srila Prabhupada says that one should be to even understand this theistic science of Bhagavad Gita. So when we are not at that platform, at least we take the association of a person who is on this platform, of rendering service to Krishna in one of these moods. And only when we have the association of such a Bhagavata can we actually understand the essence of this Bhagavad Gita. So, if someone is fortunate enough to understand the Bhagavad Gita in that line of disciplic succession without motivated interpretation, then he surpasses all studies of Vedic wisdom and all scriptures of the world. So he says that we need to find a guru who is in disciplic succession. So this is the second point he tries to bring out. He says that one should actually read in the association of a person who's a devotee of Krishna and who is also in the disciplic succession. And that is a person who is actually had a guru who imparted this knowledge to him, not that he concocted. Sometimes we may find some gurus in this, in Kali Yuga or in this contemporary age, where we see that they are very well versed in the scriptures, and they may talk and they may explain things very beautifully. But Srila Prabhupada says that that is not enough. That is not, you have to go and see, well, who is his guru? I mean, where did he get that knowledge from? Because many people are adept, they may be gifted in some sense, in some ways, and they are able to explain the Bhagavad Gita nicely. They're able to give good classes, discourses, and things like that. But then it's important to know where they derive their knowledge to. It's important to check that they are in a bona fide sampradaya. It's like generally when we go to when we are trying to gain any kind of material education to, right, we do enough research into like the university and see what is the university ranking there, what the students are trying to tell, what programs are good, what programs are not so great, and how are the teachers, the class sizes, and so many things. We tend to go into details and try to check the history like that. So even though we may see, externally a person may be giving very nice discourses, but it's important to see that they are in the disciplic succession, because then only they can actually impart the truth in the same way in which they have heard. So that's what he's saying, that disciplic succession is important. One will find in the Bhagavad Gita all that is contained in other scriptures, but the reader will also find things which are not to be found elsewhere. So we see, if as we go deep into Bhagavad Gita, we will see that many of the purports or the translations, everything makes sense when you actually relate them to examples from the Srimad Bhagavatam or even the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So, as we delve deeper into Bhagavad Gita, we'll see even in the purpose, Srila Prabhupada will quote many, anecdotes or many pastimes from Srimad Bhagavatam to clarify or to make a point like that. So, Bhagavad Gita gives the essence, basically, of all that, the science of, in one sense, science of dharmic life. It gives the essence of everything, and so it is in one sense connected to all the scriptures. And so it, like Prabhupada says here, the reader will find things which are not to be found elsewhere too. So you may find some references to other scriptures, but then there is also something else which Bhagavad Gita by itself offers. That is the specific standard of the Gita. It is the perfect theistic science because it is directly spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. And here Prabhupada makes the point that this is perfect, this knowledge is perfect. Sometimes we may tend to question as to um, who spoke this, or how do you even know if this knowledge is right or not wrong. But this is the song of God. Bhagavad Gita is the song of God himself. So Krishna, God, the Supreme Personality of God, is perfect, and his song is also perfect. So it is as perfect as it can get. And so he says, this is the perfect, this is the specific standard of Gita, and it is the perfect theistic science because it is directly spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. So these are the main points Srila Prabhupada is trying to drive home here. Then we'll move on to the next slide. Purport. I can read this one. The topics discussed by Dhritarashtra and Sanjaya, as described in the Mahabharata, form the basic principle for this great philosophy. It is understood that this philosophy evolved on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, which is a sacred place of pilgrimage from the immemorial time of the Vedic age. It was spoken by the Lord when he was present personally on this planet for the guidance of mankind. So, this happened during the Dwapara Yuga, and when Sri Krishna was himself present on this planet. And we see that uh, uh, this is actually a conversation between Dhritarashtra and Sanjaya. So Sanjaya is describing the whole scene actually basically to Dhritarashtra, and that sets the basis, or that forms the basic principle, like Srila Prabhupada says, for this great philosophy. And he also says Kurukshetra is a sacred pilgrimage place, and we'll see in the next paragraph as to why it is sacred. The word Dharmakshetra, a place where religious rituals are performed, is significant because on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, the Supreme Personality of Godhead was present on the side of Arjuna. Dhritarashtra, the father of the Kurus, was highly doubtful about the possibility of his son's ultimate victory. In his doubt, he inquired from his secretary, Sanjaya, what did they do? He was confident that both his sons and the sons of his younger brother Pandu were assembled in that uh, field of Kurukshetra for a determined engagement of the war. Still, his inquiry is significant. So, why is this? Let me just stop here. And why is this place, Kurukshetra, called Dharmakshetra? So I was listening to some class by another devotee, like a Bhakti Shastri scholar, and he was saying that there are several reasons why Kurukshetra is called a Dharmakshetra. Basically, Kuru, the the great whatever grandparent of the Kurus, like the Pandavas and the Arjunas, uh, he actually performed great penance in this place called Kurukshetra. And that time, to Lord Vishnu, he performed great austerities, and Lord Vishnu, he was very pleased with his austerities and asked him for a boon like that. So at that time, Kuru requested that this place where he performed these austerities be known, very well known as a sacred place, a Dharmakshetra. And he also requested that anybody who dies, who passes away on this sacred land, must be liberated also. So that is one another glory. And also many sages, they used to come to this holy place and then perform a lot of like austerities there, and that also it added to the uh, the uh, the sacredness, or the sanctity of this place. And also it is said that when Parashurama, after he was done killing all the evil kshatriyas, so he actually did atonement, or he did some penances for atonement actually near this place Kurukshetra, very close to this place, Kurukshetra. And because of that, also, this place is actually considered very sacred. And so we see that this is considered a very sacred place, and they both the armies actually chose this place to actually wage the war, because it was kind of close to their kingdom, and they thought that it would help them to be close. And we see that Dhritarashtra is actually asking this question about what's happening, because he knows, he specifically uses this word dharma kshetra, and he knows that this is a place where dharma will stand, where dharma will win. And he is aware that his son, Duryodhan, is actually not on the path of dharma. He is very adharmic, in that way. He even rejected Krishna's plea when Krishna said that, just give 5 small villages to the Pandavas, and call it truce. We will not have this war, just because they are kings, they're kshatriyas, so they need to rule. So just give 5 small kingdoms to them, and they will be happy. They will not have this war. But Duryodhan was not ready to even give 5 small villages to them. So that's why this war was kind of inevitable, because he was very anti-dharmic, Duryodhan, in his behavior. So uh, Dhritarashtra knows that they are in this dharma kshetra, and he's kind of worried, that the influence of this place, will actually favor the Pandavas more than the Kauravas, because he knew Pandavas had Dharma on their side, and they also had Lord Krishna on their side. So he was, in one sense, very anxious that, what if his sons change their mind and kind of give up on this idea of fighting, and so he was anxious what's going to happen to his sons. That's why he raised this question. So we'll continue. Dhritarashtra, the father of the Kurus, was highly doubtful about the possibility of his son's ultimate victory. In his doubt, he inquired from his secretary Sanjaya, "What did they do?" He was confident that both his sons and the sons of his younger brother Pandu were assembled in that field of Kurukshetra for a determined engagement of the war. Still, his inquiry is significant. He did not want a compromise between the cousins and brothers, and he wanted to be sure of the fate of his sons on the battlefield. Because the battle was arranged to be fought at Kurukshetra, which is mentioned elsewhere in the Vedas as a place of worship, even for the denizens of heaven, Dhritarashtra became very fearful about the influence of the holy place on the outcome of the battle. He knew very well that this would influence Arjuna and the sons of Pandu favorably, because by nature they were all virtuous. Sanjaya was a student of Vyasa, and therefore, by the mercy of Vyasa, Sanjaya was able to envision the battlefield of Kurukshetra even while he was in the room of Dhritarashtra. And so Dhritarashtra asked him about the situation on the battlefield. So, like we just discussed, Dhritarashtra, Srila Prabhupada so beautifully explains that Dhritarashtra was actually very fearful of what's going to happen to his sons on this battlefield. And that's why he asked, Sanjaya as to, what's happening on the battlefield. So, we'll move on to the next slide. Any volunteers who want to read this?
Yes, Mataji, I can read.
Sure.
Both the Pandavas and the sons of Dhritarashtra belong to the same family, but Dhritarashtra's mind is disclosed herein. He deliberately claimed only his sons as gurus, and he separated the sons of Pandu from the family heritage. One can thus understand the specific position of Dhritarashtra in his relationship with his nephews, the son of Pandu. As in the paddy field, the unnecessary plants are taken out, so it is expected from the very beginning of these topics that in the religious field of Kurukshetra, where the father of religion, Sri Krishna, was present, the unwanted plants like Dhritarashtra's son, Duryodhana, and others would be wiped out, and the thoroughly religious persons headed by Yudhishthira would be established by the Lord. This is the significance of the words Dharmakshetra and Kurukshetra apart from their historical and Vedic importance. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Mata. Yeah, so we see from what Srila Prabhupada is saying here that Dhritarashtra has always been partial, to his nephews, to the Pandavas, and he always had the soft corner for his own son, even though he knew that. Uh, he was not on the path of dharma and he was doing wrong things. But Dhritarashtra, by his paternal affection, he was blinded, not only, not only physically, but also spiritually. And he was blinded in his love for his son. And he actually let all this kind of injustice, this unfair thing happen to the Pandavas. So Prabhupada explains here that he says that Kurukshetra is such a place, and with the father of religion, Sri Krishna is himself the father of religion. The Vedas, they emanate from Lord Sri Krishna. So Vedeshta Sarver Ahameva Veda, Vedanta Krit Veda Videva Chaham. So he explains later in the Bhagavad Gita, we'll see that he is the one who needs to be known from all the Vedas. Vedanta Krit Veda Vit Eva Cha Aham. Vedanta Krit means the one who has actually written the Vedas. Vedanta Krit Veda Vit means who knows. Eva Cha Aham. That is certainly me, he says. So he says that, so this father of religion, actually the father of dharma, is Lord Sri Krishna, and he is himself present on this battlefield of Kurukshetra. So, you know, uh, no surprise whatsoever, the dharma is going to win in this battle of Kurukshetra. So, and the example, the analogy of the weeds in the paddy field is given here. So nice analogy is given. As in the paddy field, the unnecessary plants are taken out. So it is expected from the very beginning. So even now, before we start reading the book, we kind of know the outcome, right? There is not much suspense there. So it is expected from the very beginning of these topics in the religious field of Kurukshetra, where the father of religion, Shri Krishna, is present, the unwanted plants like Dhritarashtra's son Duryodhana and others would be wiped out, and the thoroughly religious persons would be established by the Lord. So it is already a known outcome, there is absolutely no suspense there, for us to wait and see what's unfolding. We already know the outcome because Lord Sri Krishna is present there, and he is the upholder of dharma. And in such a dharmic place like Kurukshetra, we cannot expect anything otherwise to happen. And it is already decided, the fate of everybody is decided, that only the people on the side of dharma will win and the others are going to lose. So he says this is the significance of the words Dharmakshetra and Kurukshetra. I will move on to, I'm just picking the, important verses there. So basically in the first about 27 verses, the setting of the battle field, like the scene for the battlefield is given, some description about who were the people fighting on each side of the armies, and also, like the various descriptions of what their flag symbols were or what conch shells they were using. Things like that are described in the first 27 verses. And in the later, after the 27 verses, is when the doubts of Arjuna, they are described, and where he expresses self-doubt, despair, depression, symptoms like those are all there in the later 27 verses. So in the first 27 verses itself, in the first 11 verses, it discusses who are the warriors, the kind of prominent warriors on each side of the armies, on the Pandavas and the Kauravas side. And then after that, the conch shells and other such details are discussed starting from the 12th verse. So today we are only going to be seeing about 11 verses which cover like the the prominent personalities on either side of the army. So this verse number 1.3, any volunteers who want to read? Okay, if there are no volunteers, I will read. Pashaitam Panduputranam Acharya Mahatim Chamum Yudham Drupada Putrena Tava Shishyena Dhimata. Translation: O my teacher, behold the great army of the sons of Pandu, so expertly arranged by your intelligent disciple, the son of Drupada. So, we'll read the purport. This is actually spoken by uh, Duryodhana. Duryodhana, a great diplomat, wanted to point out the defects of Dronacharya, the great Brahmana commander in chief. Dronacharya had some political quarrel with King Drupada, the father of Draupadi, who was Arjuna's wife. As a result of this quarrel, uh, Drupada performed a great sacrifice by which he received the benediction of having a son who would be able to kill Dronacharya. Dronacharya knew this perfectly well, and yet, as a liberated Brahmana, he did not hesitate to impart all his military secrets when the son of Drupada, Drishtadyumna, was entrusted to him for military education. Now, on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Drishtadyumna took the side of the Pandavas, and it was he who arranged for their military phalanx after having learned the art from Dronacharya. Duryodhana pointed out this mistake of Dronacharya's so that he might be alert and uncompromising in the fighting. By this, he wanted to point out that he should not be similarly lenient in battle against the Pandavas, who were also Dronacharya's affectionate students. Arjuna, especially, was his most affectionate and brilliant student. Duryodhana also warned that such leniency in the fight would lead to defeat. So we see that Duryodhana, he is described as a great diplomat. He's a big politician in one sense, and he very well sees that Krishna is on the other side, and he is actually scared of Arjuna and Bhima's prowess, like we'll see later. But he wants to make sure that his guru, the Dronacharya, doesn't have any soft corner because he knows Arjuna is his favorite disciple. So he wants to make sure that on this battlefield, Dronacharya is going to fight and be on his side totally. He doesn't want even one iota of affection or anything. Dronacharya should not be showing to the Pandavas. So he's making sure that Dronacharya is wholeheartedly fighting on his behalf, because he sees that there could be, uh, in wars, in battles, generally what happens is there is this fear of defection, like people leaving their side, or having a change of heart and going over to the opponent's side, like that. So Duryodhana, he wants to make sure that Dronacharya is all driven, and he wants to he's all driven to fight on the side of Duryodhana, and does not have any soft feelings or for Arjuna. And that's why he actually brings Drupada into the picture. And he very cleverly says that, see, the great army of the sons of Pandu, so expertly arranged by your intelligent disciple, the son of Drupada. And why he's bringing Drupada into the picture is, and there is past history that, Drupada and Dronacharya were actually friends. And when Dronacharya, he had his son, he was, Brahminical by nature, and he did not have much wealth and anything. So he wanted to, provide some comforts or, some necessities for his son. So at that time, he thought that Drupada is his friend, and so he can go approach him. He was the king at that time. So he thought that he can go and approach him and ask him for some wealth, so that he can maintain his family, like that. But at that time, Drupada insulted him and said, how can you be a friend to me? You're just a poor Brahmana, and I'm a king, and, we are no equals. And he shoos him away. So at that time, Dronacharya, he actually gets very angry, and he trains the Kauravas to fight against Drupada in a war. But then Drupada actually defeats the Kauravas. So then the Pandavas, they go and fight with Drupada and win the kingdom of the Drupada. So this is what happened, in the past. So he's trying to remind, Duryodhana is trying to remind that Dronacharya that, Drupada is your arch enemy. He was, you thought he was your best good friend, but then he actually betrayed you, and you fought a war with him and won his kingdom. So he's, but even after this, when Drupada sends his son Drishtadyumna, to learn from Dronacharya, Dronacharya accepts him as a disciple and teaches him. So Duryodhana is not actually in favor of this. He is not happy that, though Drupada was kind of an enemy, to Dronacharya, still Dronacharya imparted this skills, all these warrior skills to Drishtadyumna. So he's trying to incite that kind of in one sense, that kind of hatred towards Drishtadyumna and the Pandavas. And he's trying to remind Dronacharya of how Drupada insulted him, so that, it would add more salt to the wound and he would be more fired up in fighting against the Pandavas. So Duryodhana warned that such leniency in the fight would lead to defeat. So he's again trying to remind him that, even though Drupada ill-treated you, you still imparted this knowledge to Drishtadyumna, but now do not repeat this again, do not try to have a soft corner for the Pandavas. So he's trying to warn him like that. So Duryodhana, he uses these special characters in these verses, just to make sure that the people fighting on his side are all on his side. Basically, he doesn't want anybody having a change of heart. Yeah, we'll move on. 1.4. अत्र शूरा महेश्वास भीमार्जुनसमायुधि युयुधानो विराटश्च द्रुपदश्च महारथः. Translation. Here in this army are many heroic bowmen equal in fighting to Bhima and Arjuna, great fighters like Yuyudhana, Virata, and Drupada. Even though even though Drishtadyumna was not a very important obstacle in the face of Dronacharya's very great power in the military art, there were many others who were causes of fear. They are mentioned by They are mentioned by Duryodhana as great stumbling blocks on the path of victory, because each and every one of them was as formidable as Bhima and Arjuna. He knew the strength of Bhima and Arjuna, and thus he compared the others with them. So Duryodhana was in essence actually very scared of Bhima and Arjuna. So, when what do we generally do when we know somebody's prowess, or when we know some set standard, our mind goes that way, right? We compare everything to that set standard which we have in our mind, and by that we gauge, okay, supposing like for example, we are going to the city of New York, and somebody says, oh, New York is a big city, then we're like, oh, is it bigger than Houston, or is it like some the size of Boston, or like we tend to compare it to what we know, right? Like that. So you hear also Duryodhana, he knows how powerful Bhima and Arjuna are, and he compares these other fighters, Yudhana, Virata, and Drupada, with these personalities, so that it again serves as a reminder to actually Bhishma and Dronacharya, that there are such great fighters on their end, so you should not become lenient, or you should not have any soft corner and fight aggressively against them. So that's the message he's trying to give. I actually pulled up some background for Yudhana, Virata, and Drupada. Let me try to get that and read, so that we just get some idea of. Okay. Yeah. Basically, this is some Google search. Yuyudhana and Chekitana were bound to the words of Balarama, who declared that he will not fight in the war, and went away on a pilgrimage. However, they were fighting for the Pandavas, and this did not seem right to Duryodhana. So Balarama, he had this soft corner for Duryodhana. So Yuyudhana was actually, they were bound to the words of Balarama. So they were in one sense the followers of Balarama, but still they were fighting on the side of the Pandavas. So Duryodhana was not so happy, that these people are fighting on the Pandava side. Rather, they should be on his side, And Virata, let me see what I have for Virata. Yeah, Virata was ruling under the fear of Kichaka. Bhima killed Kichaka and liberated Virata. So that's why Virata is fighting on the side of the Pandavas, because Bhima helped, kill that Kichaka, and he liberated Virata. And Drupada, we know the story about that. So these are the personalities, whom Duryodhana actually tries to highlight, to incite more aggressiveness in his guru, in Dronacharya and Bhishma. Let's move on to the next verse. Did we do that? Yeah. 1.8. Okay, so what happens is until about verse 1.6, Duryodhana tries to explain the great warriors on the side of the Pandavas. And then he realizes, that the more he praises these warriors on the side of the Pandavas, these people on the side of the Kauravas may actually get demoralized. So then he goes on to explain and, try to glorify the warriors on his side, on the side of the Kauravas, to give some source of strength to them. So we'll see what happens. So from verse number 1.7, he starts glorifying the warriors on his side. Until verse 1.6, he actually is glorifying the warriors on the Pandavas side. So Bhavan Bhishmascha Karnascha Kripascha Samitim Jayah Ashwathama Vikarnascha Saumadattis Tathaivacha. There are personalities like you, Bhishma, Karna, Kripa, Ashwathama, Vikarna, and the son of Somadatta, called Bhurishrava, who are always victorious in the battle. Duryodhana mentions the exceptional heroes in the battle, all of whom are ever victorious. Vikarna is the brother of Duryodhana, Ashwathama is the son of Dronacharya, and Saumadatti or Bhurishrava is the son of the king of the Bahlikas. Karna is the half brother of Arjuna, as he was born of Kunti before her marriage with King Pandu. Kripacharya's twin sister married Dronacharya. So that's Kripacharya. So Kripacharya's sister married Dronacharya. Okay. So this is some history Srila Prabhupada gives here regarding who is who, on this side of the Kauravas. So there are personalities like you. You is here, it is referring to Dronacharya, his guru. So he's addressing his guru. And then he's stating Bhishma, Karna, Kripa. And he makes sure that, Vikarna, he quotes Vikarna, though Vikarna is not such a great warrior, but he's actually the brother of Duryodhana. And for some reason, this Vikarna, he was the only person who objected to all the wrongdoings which were happening, in the dice game, when the Pandavas, how Draupadi was ill-treated, and the Pandavas were done unjust treatment. So Vikarna was the only person to speak up and say that this is wrong, this is not right. What you guys are doing is so bad on all levels. So Duryodhana, he was kind of scared. Like I said, they always have this fear of defection when they go for a battle, and he wanted to make sure that his brother Vikarna does not defect or does not go on, move away to the other side, move away to the Pandavas. So he makes sure that he mentions, though Vikarna is not such a great warrior, he still makes sure that he mentions his name along with these great personalities like Dronacharya, Bhishma, Karna, all these great personalities, so that, he can somehow persuade him, with his sweet words, and make sure that he does not defect to the other side of the battlefield, like to the Pandava side. So that's why he actually quotes this name of Vikarna, though he's not that great a warrior or anything like that. And yeah, let's move on. 1.9. अन्ये च बहवः शूरा मदर्थे त्यक्तजीविताः नानाशस्त्रप्रहरणाः सर्वे युद्धविशारदाः. Anybody wants to read the translation and purport?
Yeah, Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Translation. Yeah. There are many other heroes who are prepared by lay down their lives for my sake. All of them are well equipped with different kinds of weapons, and all are experienced in military science. Purport: as far as the others are concerned, like Jayadratha, Kritavarma, and Selva, all are determined to lay down their lives for Duryodhana's sake. In other words, it is already concluded that all of them would die in the battle of Kurukshetra for joining the party of the sinful Duryodhana. Duryodhana was, of course, confident of his victory on account of the above mentioned combined strength of his friends. Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mataji. Yeah, like we see in the earlier, verse, we saw that Duryodhana, he actually describes, first he addresses his. Let me just go back to. I just wanted to bring one point to the fore. Bhavan Bhishmascha Karnascha. So the acharyas say that first he's referring Bhavan. Bhavan is to his guru. Like Bhavati, like you, like that in Sanskrit it is Bhavan, like you. So he's referring to his uh, guru Dronacharya, and then he's saying Bhishmascha Karnascha. So actually the acharyas give one explanation to this. I forgot to mention, I just was reminded when I was reading the second one. So this Duryodhana, like we see, he was a very clever diplomat. So he was not sure as to if he should be first pleasing his, Bhishma, or he should be pleasing his guru first. But then, like we know, Dronacharya was a Brahmana and Bhishma was a Kshatriya. So he very cleverly, he addresses his guru and then takes the name of Bhishma, because he knows that, a Brahmin is higher in order, in the Varnashrama order, than the Kshatriya. So he understands that, Bhishma would not take offense to if he mentions first Dronacharya's name and then Bhishma's name second. But however, if he took Bhishma's name first and then Dronacharya's name, then Dronacharya may take offense, because he is, after all, the guru, and the guru and the Brahmana has to be giving the first preference. So he's very clever, like we see, Prabhupada says that he's a very clever diplomat. He knows how to use his words and how to incite people with his words and his actions. So that's why we see in this verse Bhavan Bhishmascha Karnashcha. So first he says Bhavan, that is you. He addresses his guru Dronacharya first, and then he takes the name of Bhishma. So he knows that Bhishma would not mind it, because he understands that the Brahmana must be uh, given the first preference. So this is something like I missed, explaining earlier with regards to this verse. Yeah, let me see if I missed any other points. Yeah, so basically, yeah, that was something I just wanted to bring to the fore. Yeah, now let's move on to this verse. Yeah, Anya Bhava. As far as the others are concerned, like Jayadratha, Kritavarma, and Shalya, all are determined to lay down their lives for Duryodhana's sake. In other words, it is already concluded that all of them would die in the battlefield of Kurukshetra for joining the party of the sinful Duryodhana. Duryodhana was, of course, confident of his victory on account of the above mentioned combined strength of his friends. So Duryodhana himself is a little low, on his confidence of how he would win. So that is why he is actually trying to name these warriors on his side, so that it serves as a motivation, for himself and also others on the battlefield, that okay, they do have some chance to win, even though it was a lost battle in every sense, because naturally, like we saw in the earlier verses how Prabhupada explains, but still Duryodhana was trying to first thing he was trying to do was incite people on his side to fight more fiercely with the Pandavas. And the second thing, he was actually listing all the warriors on his side so that they may feel more motivated and encouraged and feel that they also have great warriors on their side. Okay, yeah. Number 10. Anybody wants to read this verse? Okay, if I can read, if nobody's wanted. अपर्याप्तं तदस्माकं बलं भीष्माभिरक्षितं पर्याप्तं त्विदम् एतेषां बलं भीमाभिरक्षितम्. Our strength is immeasurable, and we are perfectly protected by grandfather Bhishma, whereas the strength of the Pandavas, carefully protected by Bhima, is limited. So here we should draw our attention to this word aparyaptam. So we will see in a bit how this word can be used in a double way, So let's see what Prabhupada has to say here. Herein, an estimation of comparative strength is made by Duryodhana. He thinks that the strength of his armed forces is immeasurable. So aparyaptam, the word for word meaning is immeasurable, being specifically protected by the most experienced general grandfather Bhishma. On the other hand, the forces of the Pandavas are limited, being protected by a less experienced general Bhima, who is like a fig in the presence of Bhishma. Duryodhana was always envious of Bhima because he knew perfectly well that if he should die at all, he would only be killed by Bhima. But at the same time, he was confident of his victory on account of the presence of Bhishma, who was a far superior general. His conclusion that he would come out of the battle victorious was well ascertained. So we know what happened during the game of dice was Bhima was very, very unhappy. He was very angry with what injustice was meted out to the Pandavas and also especially to Draupadi. So at that time, he had vowed that he would kill Duryodhana. So even though the Pandavas, so many, they had the chance to kill Duryodhana, they made sure that it was Bhima. He wanted to fulfill his promise of killing Duryodhana, and he also wanted to take the blood of Dushashana and give it to Draupadi, because he had vowed that he would bring that blood and she would wash her hair with that until such time she would leave her hair open, like that. So Bhima had taken like these different kind of vows, when all this injustice was being done, to uh, it was done to Draupadi. So he was uh, so that's why he's comparing Bhishma and Bhima here, Duryodhana, if you see, because in his mind there is this fear of Bhima. He knows that Bhima will, fulfill his promise, because he had promised, when Draupadi was insulted. So he had promised to actually break Duryodhana's thigh, like that. So we also know that story where Gandhari, she actually calls for Duryodhan, and with all the penances from her, she blindfolded herself and did so much of pious service to her husband, and she had got lot of powers, so she wanted to give those powers of protection to her son. So she told her son to come to her naked, so that with all her power she would open her blindfold and see her son and he would be protected. But Duryodhan, he was actually tricked, and he was like, he didn't want to go in front of his mother totally naked, so he covered his lower part of his body. And this was actually another trick, so that Bhima could actually attack him. We know, we have heard the story how Krishna gives this hint that he should be hit on this thigh, because that is his most vulnerable area. So like that. So Bhima, he was Duryodhan was very scared of Bhima, because Bhima had taken so many vows, when Draupadi was being disrobed. So he was so sure that Bhima would go to any lengths to take revenge on him. That's why he compares here, if you see, Bhishma and Bhima here. The two personalities being compared here are Bhishma and Bhima. And he says that our strength is immeasurable or aparyaptam. So if we see, there is one more meaning given to this verse or to this word aparyaptam by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura. And we'll see what that is just in a bit. Yeah, I will just read out. Srila Prabhupada has translated the first Sanskrit word in text 10, aparyaptam, as immeasurable, and his purport explains the verse accordingly. Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan has also taken the meaning of aparyaptam in that way. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, however, has given aparyaptam an opposite meaning. Like in Sanskrit, according as the context, the meaning can change. Thus, depending on which way the word is taken, the first line of the verse can mean either our strength is immeasurable or our strength is insufficient. So, aparyaptam can also mean insufficient. But Srila Prabhupada has explained in this purport, taking the first meaning, immeasurable. But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura brings another, side to the same verse and says it could also be understood as insufficient. So Bhishma became encouraged when he heard this meaning. So Bhishma, he actually took the first meaning, as what is interpreted by Srila Prabhupada in the purport. So he was encouraged when he took this first meaning. However, the second meaning was intended to encourage Dronacharya. Our strength is insufficient because we are protected by Bhishma. Bhishma was a formidable warrior, but because he favored the Pandavas, Duryodhana felt that he would not fight to his full capacity. Dronacharya took the second meaning. So you see how Duryodhana is playing with the words. You see, he's a clever diplomat. So Bhishma took this first meaning and was very happy that, he is actually being the source of protection for the Kaurava army, and he was feeling encouraged. But Dronacharya took the second meaning, which says that the strength is insufficient because Bhishma is there on their side, because Bhishma is in one sense partial and he has a soft corner for the Pandavas. Dronacharya took the second meaning and he understood Duryodhana's message to be our strength is insufficient because of Bhishma's split loyalties. Therefore, Drona, you must fight even harder to make up for Bhishma's weakness. Thus, the expert diplomat Duryodhana encouraged both Bhishma and Drona with this one word. So we see how clever, this Duryodhana is in using his words also to incite and encourage. And with just one word, he is able to encourage Bhishma. At the same time, he is able to actually incite and put that doubt in the minds of Dronacharya against grandfather Bhishma. So you see how clever diplomat he is. So I would basically, I also got this family tree of the Kuru dynasty just as a reference, like we can see how, where the personalities stand. Here is grandfather Bhishma. Here is Kuru. There are 6 generations. And then grandfather Bhishma, and then Vichitravirya, and his marriage with Amba Ambalika, and Vyasadeva, the surrogate father of Pandu and Dhritarashtra and Vidura. So we see like there is this tree over here. There's Gandhari, and Dhritarashtra and Gandhari, they give birth to the Kauravas led by Duryodhana. So we see like this is a family tree I got off the internet. It kind of gives us a glimpse of who these personalities, who were these people on this battlefield there. So I would like to stop here and, take any questions or comments or realizations at this point. I hope this time limit works for everybody. So Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you so much for the beautiful class. And yeah, yes, Mataji, this time limit is very, very good, Mataji, for me especially. It's very nice class, Mataji, very beautiful explanation. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Yeah, I didn't want too much, going to 9 and things like that. So I thought we will keep it short.
Yeah, Mataji, if it is 9, it's getting too late for everyone, I guess. It's good, Mataji. This one is nice.
Yeah, anybody has any questions or comments or realizations? Yeah, thanks to Radhika Mataji. She prepared the slides for this class. Very grateful to her. And very grateful to Preeti Mataji, Lalitangi Mataji, and also Radhika Mataji for, you know, agreeing to this idea and encouraging me always.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hi, Bo Lakshmi Mataji. I hope the class was okay.
Yes, Mataji, it's fantastic class. It's a good starting, so we can systematically go. Yeah, like yes, as you said, Lalitanki Mataji was given a very good introductory class for us, and after that, this continuation is nice, Mataji. So there are some beginners question, Mataji. Like when we read chapter 1, we get some questions in the beginner level. But I really want to ask this question. So the reply from you is, it will be like, you see, I have asked this question before and I've got answers, but still I want to hear it again because each time when Mataji or Prabhuji they give the reply or they answer the question, they give new informations, and sometimes I also forget the answer, so that's why I'm asking the beginner question. But please do bear with me. So,
No
Mataji,
worries, Mataji. If I know, I will answer. I'm not so good with names and histories, like that. But whatever I know, I will try to answer, Mataji.
yes, yes, Mataji. So, in the beginning slide, Prabhupada is saying, right, we want to read Gita scrutinizingly with the help of a person who is a devotee of Krishna.
Mhm.
So the question is, we know what happens when we read with a devotee of Krishna or a person who is a devotee. But my question is, what happens if we are not reading with a devotee, or if, for example, if I'm first time I'm getting Gita, or I'm listening to Gita, but he is not a devotee of Krishna. So what is going to happen? Like, will I not get the essence of Gita, or I will be misled, or what is the drawbacks in it?
Nice question, Mataji. Yeah, basically, what could, it's like playing the devil's advocate, like trying to understand what happens, if we don't go in the association. So, um, from what I've heard and understood from what our Acharya says, that I mean, we will definitely not get the same essence, like we have to understand that understanding these scriptures and Vedas is not a scholarly pursuit in any sense. This is, I mean, we may get a scholarly understanding of of this literature if we try to go on it by our own, or try to listen to some scholar who has translated the so many people have translated Bhagavad Gita and given classes, and it's so popular a literature. But the thing is, you can be doing the whole Bhagavad Gita and not understand who is this personality of Godhead, Bhagavan. Till the end, they would never mention the word like Bhagavan. Here is referring to Lord Krishna himself, though it is so obvious from, you know, um, chapter 1 itself. People will try to give interpretations, like such as, this battlefield is nothing but your life, where you face all your all these situations and troubles. So many different kinds of interpretations have been given. And then when Krishna says, I am this, I am that, I am, in so many in Vibhuti Yoga, in those chapters. So people refer to that I as themselves, can you believe the audacity? So they tend to think that I is, when you go on to that level of purification, you are everything, you're the supreme Brahman, and it's referring to you, and Arjuna is referring to some kind of inadequacy in you. So many interpretations, people concoct and speculate and make, when it is as clear, and black and white, that this is Krishna is speaking to Arjuna. But there have been so many interpretations which have come out in the past which say that that when Krishna says I, it is actually referring to yourself, the supreme yourself, the pure yourself, and Arjuna is just your deficiencies coming to the fore, like that. So many things can go awry, and you will never understand who is the supreme personality of Godhead, and what is the essence. The whole essence of Bhagavad Gita is to take you close to devotional service, like which is explained in the middle 6 chapters. You will never get that impression if we tend to read with not with the on acharya of a bona fide sampradaya, things could go that bad. So, and I did, when I was trying to understand the uh, sometimes I did this exercise of trying to see some of these Sanskrit verses are kind of controversial, and for Mayavad, because they kind of have this Mayavad kind of gives the Brahman kind of uh, you know understanding to the Brahman aspect, understanding of Krishna. So I went and researched also a little bit, looking at how the non-Vaishnava Sampradaya Acharyas would actually um, tend to interpret these verses. And it is really, if we try to do that kind of a study just for analysis sake, we come to see that you will end up being so confused in the end that you'll not be able to get the actual purport of what is being trying to be conveyed by this whole scripture. I mean, things can go that bad. Like there are a few verses which kind of have a Mayavad connotation to it, and they are used to the full extent by Mayavas when they preach. And um, it's interesting to see how our Vaishnava acharyas interpret that, and how and somebody else may interpret that. And if we don't go with the purport of Srila Prabhupada, the translation, we can also derive the same different meaning, like that. So things can go like that. Things can go south, if we don't take the shelter of the acharyas interpretations and commentaries. So that is my personal experience. I tried to do that kind of a study once, just for the heck of it. I wanted to see what was happening. I mean, I try to read different sampradayas. There is one website where they have commentaries for the same verse, the Bhagavad Gita, by different sampradaya acharyas, and I was trying to see what is the difference they're trying to make in that, like that. So there are a few verses, which can kind of take you on a spin. So we have to be careful that we read a particular sampradaya, a particular acharya, and stick to that. Otherwise it can give rise to a lot of confusion, and the end aim of reading would be lost. That's my personal input on this. But Lalitangi Mataji or the other seniors who have thoughts can also share. Is that okay?
Mataji, wonderful,
Yeah, sorry, Mataji, go ahead.
wonderful class, Mataji, and very, very nice question answer session. It's so nice. Like, as you say, yeah, exactly. That's what I was also thinking, that ultimately we will lose the essence of what Bhagavad Gita is meant for. It's simply meant for understanding that Krishna is the Lord, I am the servant, and devotional service is my constitutional position. So that understanding will be lost because of, as Mataji said, that uh, going around in a spin. And when Krishna says something, then they say it is you, and then Arjuna is anarthas. Then then there is no value of that. Is why we can see that Prabhupada looks like his anger coming out in the purports sometimes so strongly against people who are misleading and not representing as it is, because the chance for us to go back to Godhead, become a devotee, everything is gone because of that. Yeah, thank you, Mataji. Very nicely you brought that out.
Thank you, Mataji, for always encouraging me. It's thanks to your potency that I'm able to say anything today. So
No, no, Mataji, please. It's so relishable. You're taking so much effort. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Lakshmi Mataji, is that okay, Mataji, the answer?
Yes, yes, Mataji. So it was nice that when you said that even the Bhagavan, they may not even understand the meaning of Bhagavan till the end. It's fully Bhagavan Uvacha. And what if they don't know the way? I mean, so how much we have been we'll be lacking if we are getting it from outside from a devotee.
Yeah,
And
I mean, it kind of, I wonder, how so clearly Bhagwan is mentioned, but then how somebody can interpret it as oneself, I mean, I don't know. It's so surprising, right? I mean, imagine us being in that position, how lost we will be. I mean, that will be such a big loss.
yes, yes, nice, nice reply, Mataji. Thank you, and thank you for Laltani Mataji also. And my next question is Mataji. So if we are going to give Gita for someone, like maybe our family, friends, or somebody, as a well-wisher, we may want them to get this knowledge. What is a prerequisite, or how should we set the mood to the receiver before giving Gita to them? Because if you're giving a novel or if you're giving some other educational books, you don't want to set them into a mood or to prepare them. No prerequisite is required apart from our educational studies. But I'm asking, like, Gita is not a ordinary book. So how do you set the mood of a person? Is there something like that? Like you give some prerequisite before giving Gita? If it is so, what should be the prerequisite?
Very nice question, Mataji. As always, you ask very sweet questions, which actually help me also understand. So for this, answer, I'm reminded of His Holiness Bhakti Sundar Goswami Maharaj. So he was sharing this in the class once with all of us. So he tried to preach to his own family. He is of South American origin. I think so, yeah, South American, yeah. So he was trying to preach to his sister, and he was trying to explain that why don't you give this book a read, and like you rightly said, if you're not in the proper mood to take it, we may not even, even though we are reading Srila Prabhupada's words, we may not get the whole essence, of the Bhagavad Gita. So this is what he shared. So when so his sister was asking him as to why I should read this book, and just accept what is given in this book like that, So he set the premises for her, and he just told her that, when you're reading this book, just go with the mindset and accept, at least in theory, even if you don't want to accept in truth, in practicality, or you don't want to practice, but at least in theory, accept the fact that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, in theory, you put this in your mind and then read the Bhagavad Gita. Then you will understand what Srila Prabhupada is trying to say, and what Maharaj was trying her to get, the knowledge he was trying that his sister would get from the book. So, I would like to think that, when we're giving this book to somebody, if we can impress on them that, they read it in that mood, thinking that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Arjuna, though being his close associate, has taken this position of a disciple, Shishyasteham sadhimam tuam prapannam. So he takes this position of a disciple and inquires in the mood of humility and submission. And, and only then we can understand this. That is my, otherwise, if we think when Krishna is saying this karma yoga, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, bhakti yoga, and all, if we think some ordinary person, is saying it just like that on the battlefield, he thought something came to his mind and he's saying, where is the weight to it, unless we, like Srila Prabhupada says here, see, this is the specific standard of Gita. It is the perfect theistic science because it is directly spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. So he says that we have to go with this premise, that it is directly, this is the perfect science, and because it's spoken by God, who is none other than Lord Sri Krishna here. So I feel that that is the basic thing we may want to tell a person when they're trying to read the Bhagavad Gita, is that at least in theory, accept the fact that, Krishna is Bhagavan and he is preaching this to you. Only then we will get at least something out of the Bhagavad Gita. That is what I heard from His Holiness Bhakti Sundar Goswami Maharaj. Does that answer your question, Mataji?
Yes, yes, Mataji, that helps me more because I had that question, like how do we set up? Because Arjun was in the mood. He was like he really wanted a help. So he was looking for a help. He was helpless. But right now we don't say that we are in such a situation of a helpless situation. Then why should I read this? Or why should I go and ask somebody to read this book?
Sure.
So that's why I was trying to understand what should be the prerequisite.
Yeah,
So
like you rightly said, Mataji, Artho Arthati, Jignasu, Jnani, Bharatarshava. So the fourth kind of people, take to Krishna consciousness, right? Or they may go in search of a spiritual pursuit, right? Somebody has to be in distress, or somebody needs some wealth or fame, Jignasu, somebody who's inquisitive, or somebody who is in a philosophical pursuit. So, like you said, if somebody doesn't feel the need for any of these, he feels that he's fine and perfect. So how do we even try to uh, give this knowledge? At least we can tell them that, like, theoretically accept Krishna as as the supreme personality of Godhead, and read this, because they're not in any distress. And if we can try to explain to them, saying that the kind of depression Arjuna went through in the first chapter, and we also face the situations in life, they may not agree to that. They may say, I'm leading quite a happy life, problems come and go, it's a part of life, and they try to give us that kind of a philosophy. So sometimes that may fail if we tried to tell them to identify with Arjuna and say that we also face so many different problems in life, and we can identify with Arjuna and take these lessons from Gita. But some people may say, I don't have a problem like that. So at least basic premise to understand is that we take, at least in theory, that Lord Krishna is the supreme personality of God.
yes, Mataji, thank you. And next one more question, Mataji. Is it time, Mataji? Is it okay?
No, I'm good, Mata. That's why I did a short session, so that we can have time for questions and finish it in time, Mataji.
Sure, Mataji. Again, only two more questions. So, yeah, this question always, Mataji. So, why the Warfield was chosen? Um, like many times I've discussed about it and I've got the replies also, but still this question comes on my mind. What was the need for the Warfield and on the very first day, and why did Krishna didn't give this knowledge to Arjuna before? Like, did ever Arjuna get a situation of being a disciple to Krishna? Because we see most of the time Arjuna was always very submissive to Krishna, and he also faced so many challenges in his life before the war. We have seen so many times he has faced challenges, and he used to take guide, like he used to discuss with Krishna. But why this war field was chosen by Krishna? So your answer.
Sure, Mataji. Like you said, there could be many replies to this. And Pandavas did go through a lot of trials and tribulations, and Krishna has helped them, in the past also, when they were going through a lot of trouble. And we see, especially, but on this battlefield of Kurukshetra, we see that Arjuna is totally lost, Earlier, they were seeking, they were, praying for Krishna's help, and Krishna was helping them. But now Krishna has brought them. He is the charioteer of Arjuna, and still Arjuna is refusing to fight, because he is in that state of material affection for his kith and kin. So this is a very kind of an awkward situation, right? The Lord Himself is leading him to the war, but Arjuna is now, kind of going against Krishna, in one sense that he doesn't want to, wage the war against his own family. So at that time Krishna says that, um, kutasva kashmalamidam, like, what has overcome you? You're taken to this cheap thing, like bodily attachment, and what has come over you? It is unbefitting of an Aryan, of a warrior like that. And why are you, doing like this? So far, Arjuna always considered Krishna his close friend, and Krishna protected them. There was not much of a, Arjuna never questioned Krishna's, whatever help Krishna did. But now, when in the battlefield, he was so bewildered. He had all those symptoms, like his hairs were standing on the end, and he was like so much in depression and anxiety, all the symptoms of anxiety. He didn't want to, he wanted to leave and run away. So even though Krishna, brought him himself to fight, but he wanted to leave and run away. He was so bewildered, um, that at that point of time he didn't even want to follow Krishna's advice. So the situation was so tense, at this point of time. They did suffer many calamities, lot of adversities, but Krishna was on their side, and they took to it. They accepted it, accepted Krishna's help, and went ahead with it. But at this point we see Arjuna himself is kind of not wanting to do the war, and so Krishna is imparting this knowledge to him, because like this is, like, you could say in one sense, a culmination of everything. Like, imagine the kind of depression he's under, when he is so bewildered being a king, and uh, everything is all set, the victory is already decided because Krishna is on their side, and the victory is his. And Krishna gives out so many reasons, like we will see later, that you will get fame, you will get power, you will get this, you will get that, you will reach the heavenly planets, you will do this, that, and nothing ever satisfies Arjuna, like that. So he is in so much of bewilderment and confusion. And that's perhaps one of the reasons why this particular juncture was chosen to impart this great knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. Lalitang Mataji, do you want to add, Mataji? Do you have any other reasons you think?
Yeah, perfect, Mataji. I also thought the same, and I've heard the same. And also, I mean, nobody could give any excuse that I have this problem, I have that problem. So, but this is not the time for Bhagavad Gita now for me, because nobody can have a more grave problem than what Arjuna had. So, and that's the main thing, the applicability of this knowledge, in spite of being in, like as you said, in such a tense situation, such a dire situation. Also, this applies. And also, what is Arjuna doing? Arjuna killing. I mean, that is the worst thing, and that is as devotional service. He doesn't get any reaction for that killing, because he's doing that as devotional service to the Lord. So, to that extent, devotional service can be performed. So, yeah, I also heard the same thing, that there couldn't be, if Krishna didn't speak it in the battlefield to Arjuna and to somebody else, then people would say that, I'm in a worse condition than Arjuna. But now we cannot say that. There's no loophole for that. Yeah, that was my understanding also, Mataji.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Lakshmi Mataji, you
Yes,
heard from the expert also. I hope it has.
I have already asked this question once to Laltani Mataji, but still it doesn't come to my mind. It was not clear for me. So I'm again trying to know it. So
Some clarity is there, Mataji, or now, or sometimes, we just have to hear over and over again. Only then it gets clear.
yes, when it comes to Bhagavad Gita, I have to listen it again and again. So yes, Mataji, so I can understand. I'm trying to understand the point, Mataji, that was the highest, like, climax point, the maximum trouble a person can be. And at the time, the highest knowledge, the most confidential knowledge is given by Krishna himself to clear his confusion and everything. And Mataji also said that the highest glorification of devotional service, like killing, is done as a devotional service. Like, not literally not killing, but like how the glorification for devotional service. Yes, Mataji, that's a good reply. I can understand. And
Yeah, but
only
just sorry, Mataji, one small thing. If we see even the literatures, right, Mataji, like Bhagavatam also, when Parikshit Maharaj was going to actually die, right? That's when he inquired from the sages, the death, when it comes to the matter of life and death, I think it kind of gets to be a very, a grave situation, or a very important juncture in one's life, I think, to get this kind of knowledge. because we see in the Bhagavatam also, right? Like how Parikshit Maharaj, when he was going to die, that's when the whole Bhagavatam came up to be. And also we see that even when Hiranyaksha's family was mourning about the loss of Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu actually preached science at the time of death, and such serious situations. I think it adds more to more gravity to the philosophy like that. Don't you think so, Mataji?
Yes, yes, Mataji, because when they are in the highest loss, anything material cannot bring them back to that, from that. So only devotional and only spiritual can revive their energy, or give them some meaning to the life or something. So yes, that makes more sense, Mataji. Yeah.
Recently also, I was listening, there's this one lady called Vishakha Hari. She does like this she does katha kalakshepa, that's how they call, like basically
Yeah,
philosophy.
I used to listen to that, Mataji. Yes.
Yeah, with music like that. So one audience, so she gave a class on Bhagavad Gita, and one audience person, Chitra Divakurni, she's a writer actually. So then she took to spirituality, and then Vishakha was saying that, let me ask you back a question. Generally people ask me. So she was like, how did you get into all this? So Chitra was saying that, I faced death, like I had a near death experience, and I was left with no choice. And that's when I took to spirituality, like that, she was saying. So I think but I mean, it's not always the case, but many times that is the case, right? When we feel so helpless, when we are facing a near death situation, we understand that nothing is in our control, right?
Yes, yes, Mataji. Okay. So that's all, Mataji. And one last question I wanted was just a clarification, Mataji. That Duryodhan was doing the comparison between Bhishma and Beam.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, how does we know that Beam was going to, like, he vowed that he will kill Duryodhan and all the hundred brothers of Duryodhan. But did how do we compare Bhishma and Beam? Because Bhishma is a Pidamaha. So why did he compare these both personalities? Because Beam is new, is young, and Bhishma is very great and very experienced and is Pidamak. So how did he compare them?
Yeah, like I said, this is in the later verses. Wait, where's this? Is that verse? Yeah, in this 10, like this is at this point of time, he's trying to encourage himself and his army, so until that verse 1.6, he's actually praising and glorifying the great warriors on the side of Pandavas. But after 1.7, he tries to glorify, he tries to give some motivation to himself and also to the warriors on his side. So that's why, he says that we are perfectly protected by Bhishma. He's because you see, Bhishma was the first commander in general. Of course, during the course of the Mahabharata, there were so many people. After Bhishma's passing away, somebody else was the commander. Like I think I heard about 4 to 5 people were commander in chief for the war, the whole duration of the war. So at that time he was looking up to grandfather Bhishma, for as a source of strength. And in his mind he felt that Bhishma is, he's such a warrior that, who had never really seen defeat of any type, and he thought that he would be a perfect match for Bhima. And why he's quoting Bhima in particular? Because he's actually very scared of Bhima. So he is kind of trying to encourage himself, at that point of time, by saying that, okay, Bhishma can protect me against Bhima, like that.
Oh, okay, Mother. So he is afraid of Bhima. So
Yeah.
he's for his own confidence,
Yeah.
he's trying to quote like that. And because he was telling their Pandavas are carefully protected by Bhima. So, but in the Pandava side, it was Dushtatima was a commander in
Mhm,
chief.
mhm, mhm.
So
Yeah, but Bhima, he always brings this Bhima, he's very scared of Bhima.
that is Bhima. Okay, okay,
Mhm.
Mataji. That makes sense. Yes. Okay, Mataji. So very nice class. So we are starting with chapter 1. we can keep on with Krishna's grace. We keep on successfully completing Bhagavad Gita. I hope. And thank you so much, Mataji. Beautiful slides. And thanks for everybody who helped for preparing the slides and for your research and class, Mataji. Thank you so much. Jai Sachinandana, Hare Krishna.
Thank you for your beautiful questions, Mataji. Very insightful, and it helps me to also learn, Mataji. Thank you so much. Anybody else has any questions or any comments? Vinita Mataji?
Thank you so much, Mataji, for the nice class. Thank you, Mataji, Lakshmi Mataji. Nice questions. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Lakshmi Mataji, for your beautiful questions. You don't leave anybody's mind question, Mataji. You cover everybody's questions. Thank you so much for your assessment. Whatever we have, you put it in a question nice way, and then you'll ask it. Very nice, Mataji. Very nice association of yours. Is there anybody having any more questions for Mataji? Okay. If there are no more questions, Mataji, we can end the call here. We will meet again for next Tuesday for the chapter 2, I guess. Mataji, yes?
We'll continue from the 12th verse.
11. Oh, 11. Okay, 11. Okay. Okay. Hare Krishna. Vancha kalpa tarobhyasya kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo दास ठाकुर की जय, श्रीला प्रभुपाद की जय, सुख सागरी माता जी की जय, असपति की जय। हरे कृष्ण
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
कृष्णा।